Hello and welcome to the EMS Handoff podcast. This is your host, David, and along with my co-host tonight, Bradley Dean, we are coming together to have a really rather interesting conversation tonight. Don't you think, Bradley?
Yes, sir.
There's going to be a lot to it tonight. Well, we can't give Eric too much of grief tonight. So Eric is out helping in a pediatric clinic tonight, taking care of kids. So we'll wait till he gets done. He may jump in the middle of this.
The text I got says, dropping kids off at the pool.
Well, he sent you a different one than he sent me. Must not like me as much. So, but yeah, it's just us tonight. No adult. Well, I was going to say adult supervision, but Eric isn't adult supervision either. It's so it's just going to be one of these nights. So we got a great topic tonight. But how have you been doing, Bradley?
Doing good. Been trying to catch up on some social media stuff, the emails. Got to get out of the office and do some work this week. So tomorrow I won't be in the office.
We need people, right?
Yes.
We need some people. That's some social media peoples and some anybody who wants to do all that. Come out and help us out. We'd be more than glad to have you. So, all right. Well, before we get into tonight's topic, we always like to thank our podcast partner, the Journal of Emergency Medical Services. Jim's has been a great partner to the EMS Handoff podcast since the beginning. They continue to be a great partner even today. As we're, believe it or not, just shy, Bradley Dean, of our 1 year. We've just got, I think we're hitting 10 months here, getting ready to go on 11. And, it's been a great year. But Jim's has been a great partner. So make sure and go by and check them out at jims.com. You can check out all of our previous episodes, as well as our fellow podcast partners out there. There's several great topics that you can find on the EMS Today podcast. You can also subscribe, rate, and review on Apple, Google, and Spotify. And for us specifically, you see me in our original red. Bradley Dean's got on our Keep Back podcast line. Don't forget to go by the Pursue Company and check out the EMS Handoff line of merchandise. Go to www.thepursueco.com and you'll find us under the affiliate page. And you find all of our gear. We're getting ready to start working our way out of summer back into winter, so you can get our hoodies, long sleeve shirts, or if you're like me that likes short sleeve all the time, get some of our t-shirts, got different colors, awesome apparel. So tonight we're actually going to start off with a video that was presented or put out by the San Diego County Sheriff Gore in a recent incident that they had, in which they had a sheriff's deputy that went through a medical situation on a scene. Bradley, how did you come across this?
So I came across this because somebody else shared it on Facebook. I'm gonna go ahead and plug Kelly Grayson because that's who I saw share it. And a little bit of conversation with some colleagues. There are lots of great things that are in this video, but at the same time, there are some things that I think we probably need to look at to make sure that people really understand. One, that car fentanyl is dangerous. So if you know that's what it is, don't mess with it. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. But what you're going to see in this video, we don't believe is a fentanyl overdose. Probably some other type of reaction, but I will give some props to the training officer that's there. The FTO Crane took immediate action, and he didn't just stand by.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, we have one small portion of this. And what's very interesting is as we started our research into this, there's topics on both sides. But this came out in a publication online and had all of the information. We'll share the video that was provided by the Sheriff's Department. But then we had a completely separate article to take a look, and so we kind of figured that it was a great point to discuss. And I'm going to bring this up. It's very similar to methamphetamine labs. When methamphetamine labs were first around, law enforcement would rush into them, and they had several individuals that were injured or even killed because of the byproducts that were in those labs. And we know that any of these situations that could be bad, but this gave a lot of talking points. So we definitely would like to hear your all's feedback as we go. But we're going to take just a short period of time. I'll share the screen here so we can simply see what is going on this call. So.
And while you're pulling that up, this comes from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, is where it comes from.
I'm San Diego County Sheriff Bill Gore. What you're about to see is traumatic body-worn camera footage involving one of our deputies who was exposed to fentanyl during his patrol shift.
You're okay. Don't be sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. I got you, okay? I'm not gonna let you die. I'm not gonna let you die. It's okay, just focus on your breathing, okay? Focus on it. I need Narcan! I'm Corporal Scott Crane from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. My trainee was exposed to fentanyl and nearly died. It was our first radio call of the day, and this was Deputy Five Eyes' radio call. He found a white substance that he suspected was drugs.
Yeah, it's a powder.
It could be cocaine or fentanyl.
It tested positive for fentanyl. This stuff's no joke, dude. It's super dangerous. I was like, hey, dude, too close. You can't get that close to it. A couple seconds later, he took some steps back and he collapsed. I ran over to him and I grabbed him, and he was ODing. And I went to my trunk, I grabbed the Narcan, came down to him, grabbed him, and I did one nasal spray in one nostril, opened the other one, another nasal spray in the other one.
I remember just not feeling right, and then I fall back, and I don't remember anything after that.
Just breathe, buddy. Trying to get him to focus on just breathing, and because that fentanyl, you can't breathe.
It was in an instant. It's as though my lungs just locked up. I couldn't breathe. I was trying to gasp for breath, but I couldn't breathe at all.
Five, are you okay? Talk to me.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Don't be sorry. You're okay. Don't be sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. I got you, okay? I'm not gonna let you die. I'm not gonna let you die. I need Narcan! I got you. I'm trying to not let him go. I wanted him to know he wasn't alone. It's an invisible killer. He would have died in that parking lot if he was alone. Fire department got there, put him on the gurney, his eyes rolled back in his head, and he started to OD again. And he was ODing the whole way to the hospital.
I don't think people realize the severity of just how deadly it really is. I'm Deputy David Five Eye, and I almost died of fentanyl overdose.
One of the greatest threats we currently face is a synthetic opioid, fentanyl, which is 50 times more potent than heroin. Fentanyl overdoses are on the rise throughout our county. Every day, deputies recover fentanyl in our communities. And the county jails are not immune either to the dangers of this drug. Every week, sheriff's deputies intercept fentanyl entering our facilities. When inmates overdose on fentanyl, smuggled into our jails, deputies and nurses are saving dozens of lives every month by administering naloxone, a medicine used to rapidly reverse the effects of the overdose. Fentanyl deaths in California have increased almost 46% in just the last year. Being exposed to just a few small grains of fentanyl could have deadly consequences. The dangers of fentanyl are real, and this drug is killing our communities. Please take the time to share this video. It might save the life of your son, daughter, friend, or a loved one.
All right.
So I think first and foremost, the biggest thing that we see here is Bradley needs to check his emails because about 2,700 emails on there. Just saying. But one of the
Yeah, I don't know why I dumped back in. I actually had it cleared out earlier, but I was moving some stuff around. So
So one, I want to thank the county sheriff for putting together the video. The thing about these kind of situations, whether we think that this is fentanyl or not, it's a great opportunity. There's much there. Thankfully, again, the corporal stepped in, and the deputy is alive and able to tell a story. So ultimately, the gist of this conversation or this video was they went to a scene. They had what would be identified as otherwise healthy individuals, because if they're anything like most public safety agencies, there's some sort of medical assessment before they're hired on. Comes out to a scene, exposed, the individual falls out and subsequently treated and released with what appears to be no lingering effects. Is that basically a good gist of that, Bradley?
Yeah, that's a really good gist of that. And like I said, sharing the video and doing the stuff that they were doing, I think they were doing it with the best intent.
So before we get too far in, we take a look, and ultimately there's two big articles that are out talking about this, and one of them is basically sharing the video and saying, hey, this is definitely something we needed to look at. The the deputy was exposed to fentanyl, and we all know that fentanyl, carfentanil, and any of the derivatives thereof are definitely something that's bad. And saying, hey, he was exposed, this is what caused. And then ultimately, what really kind of prompts this email or this episode is the fact that even after that, a subsequent episode occurred in which another article was written from a different perspective and said, no, not really. And so, in the second one, a toxicologist, physician, and then a paramedic is expressing their concerns. So let's dig into this a little bit deeper, Bradley. We see Deputy 5I in the back of their unit, appears to be testing. Next thing you know, he postures, gets very rigid, stands up very rigid, and falls down.
Yeah. So let me actually go back and let's take a look at that again. And we'll do a little by little. So let's talk about the toxidrome of an actual opiate or opioid overdose to begin with. So usually when that happens, if it's injected, ingested, or absorbed, like you've got a fentanyl patch or something else, it is a slow, even with an injected, unless it's really high doses of an opiate or opioid, there's an alteration of consciousness, but it's not generally a rapid onset. It's a slow, I'm going to sleep, I'm not breathing well, going down, not a sudden stiffening and then falling back. So I'm gonna hit share screen again here. So we can look at this. I'm gonna do a little bit by bit. Okay. Oh, look, my email things went away again. So, I was moving stuff around probably when you saw that. So let me look here. And I've got this pulled up. I'm going to hit play for just a second. Let's look at this, and I'm going to stop it.
Seconds later, he took some steps back and he collapsed.
So look right here. See the body stiffen. Is almost like he's trying to steady himself. And then I look at the arms. So his arms didn't go down to his side. His arms actually stayed stiff. Some people may call this something along the lines of a conversion disorder or pseudoseizure, because they have both been told that this stuff is bad. And then all of a sudden, he's exposed. We don't know what's going through his mind, but I honestly believe that he thinks at this point something's going on and something is triggered. His arms are stiff. Now let's look at this. So watch him again.
Too close. And got close to it. A couple seconds later, he took some steps back and he collapsed.
So here we see him collapse.
I ran over to him and I grabbed him, and he was ODing. And I went to my trunk, grabbed the Narcan, came down to him, grabbed him, and I did one nasal.
So in an altered level of consciousness with an opiate, the eyes would typically not be open. So there again, that's another question with this piece of, is he experiencing something along the lines of basically his entered the whole thing of the fight, flight, or freeze, and it basically his body is trying to reboot because he thinks he's been exposed to something.
Spray in one nostril, open the other one, another nasal spray in the other one.
I remember just not feeling right, and then I fall back, and I don't remember anything after that.
Just breathe, buddy. Breathe.
So
Trying to get him to focus on just breathing, and because that fentanyl, you can't breathe.
arms
It
still
was in an
stiff.
instant. It's as though my lungs just locked up. I couldn't breathe. I was trying to gasp for breath, but I couldn't breathe at all.
So, and the other part with that, with a true fentanyl or opiate or opioid overdose, the individuals are not aware that they can't breathe because of that alteration of consciousness. So those are some of the things there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Is it's quite interesting the response from the deputy, basically living this exposure versus, as we know from most of the most opioid overdoses, with that you lose tension in the body, you lose the cognitive function as well. And so the fact that he realized he couldn't breathe, the fact that he realized, but that he was still breathing on his own, and living the incident in itself was quite interesting. So you mentioned conversion disorder. Let's go into that just a little bit, because you got in the fight, flight, or freeze. And I think most of us have been through a situation, maybe not obviously to this experience, that something like this has occurred. So go into the conversion disorder as we're discussing here as well.
So, well, I'm not diagnosing and saying that that's what this was, but when we start looking at basically what we're dealing with here, I'm gonna reference this to and I hope Microsoft doesn't get mad at me for doing this, to a Windows computer. Okay, so if your computer for whatever reason freezes because something happens, and it's a Windows computer, you're going to reboot it. Well, that's basically at this point what his whole body is. So some of the signs and symptoms of that is his body needs to reboot. And the conversion disorder begins with some stressor, some trauma, some psychological distress, because he believes that he has touched something, done something that's put him in peril. And then when you start doing that, those include blindness, partial or total paralysis, inability to speak, numbness, difficulty of swallowing, balance problems. All of those classic things are what we saw in that video. So that's why I believe that that's probably what we're dealing with, and not a fentanyl overdose, because he believes that he's gotten into something and now he's got this stressor and he's basically frozen, and his brain is going to work to reboot itself.
And I think you kind of hear within that he he does nothing, and then he realizes, I shouldn't say realizes, but kind of starts to come back, because, and for continuing on with your Windows conversation, one of the things he does is starts off, I'm sorry. It's almost, that's all, he has one response and that's it. And it's almost like Windows booting back up into the safe mode. There's not really a whole lot of functioning going on, but he knows that there's something there. And that's his one and only action that he can take. Now, in the video, we see the officer, using two different, initially from his own supply, using two different intranasal naloxone doses. Now, a couple of things that we always take a look at, because I know as I talk to students as they have gone on to a variety of overdose calls, one of the things that you always take a look at with an overdose is typically with that intranasal Narcan or naloxone, you're having to use a bag to use bag valve mask ventilations so that you can actually support that. But this individual is breathing on his own. And one thing that brings up is the fact that normally with those opioid overdoses, including fentanyl and carfentanil, is that it is a depressant for the respiratory system and they stop breathing. So the fact that he's still doing that on his own is another indication. But additionally, as you mentioned, with fentanyl, it's usually kind of a slow acting unless there's a large dosage. But even with that, with good respiratory effort and naloxone administration, most of the time, those symptoms reside fairly rapidly as well.
Yeah, and the biggest reason we should use Narcan is not for an ultra level of consciousness, but for hypoventilation. As you mentioned, most of the time we got to use a bag mask to get it in there. General population can use the type of Narcan that you saw them using in this video to support an individual before they're completely unresponsive, or hope that even, if they're hyperventilating to a point where they're only breathing 2 to 3 breaths a minute, agonal respirations, it'll still work. So I want to say that the field training officer that was there, the immediate action, because he worked down that whole thing of, oh my, this is what we're working on. This is what we're dealing with. This is what must be happening. He took action versus freezing.
Well, and even with, as we kind of mentioned, in a situation like this, that overdose is still going to be on my differential until I can prove otherwise. Yep. But the key things that I saw him doing is, he was focused on the breathing, so he was assessing the breathing. And then one of the biggest things that I saw him do is he undid the bulletproof vest, which is going to restrict that chest movement, especially if we have a depressant on board. It's going to be very difficult to breathe. So he immediately removed that. So he was going through the checklist and he was calling for assistance, which ended up getting there fairly quickly. So, that training that they've got, I'm going to give them kudos. He thought through everything and started to respond. And even if he wasn't treating, and this is where we get into, he's trained specifically for those life-saving interventions, primarily for their partners or people that show up on. He didn't realize it, but not only was he assessing and treating for possible opioid overdose, but because he was focusing on the breathing, keeping the individual conscious and getting the help, he was going through some of the other differentials as well, even before anything else happened. So,
and he turned him on his side, which is another big thing, just in case it was, and he got nauseated. So
yes,
he did all the right things.
So, in looking at this, obviously the sheriff's department has felt, and they have access, obviously, to more information than we do. Because they know what was in the back of the vehicle, they know the subsequent outcome. And, one of the big things is especially with the conversion disorder, if that is there, and again, we're not laying anything on there, we're just kind of taking a look. There's really not a whole lot that you can do to identify a conversion disorder in that, other than looking at those, because it may or may not be replicated, and there may not be any lingering effects from that as well. Once they got onto the hospital. So obviously there's a lot going on here that we don't have access to.
And even if it was a conversion disorder, keep in mind that happens in a very, very, very small percentage of the population. And I want to say it's like 0.5% of the population ever have or experience anything along the lines of a conversion disorder. So, if that's what this was, chances of him ever having that issue again, probably pretty low.
Yeah, just one source is saying, our common for that would be between 10 and 35 years of age, and we go from a 0.011% up to a 0.5% of the overall population. So it is something small, and it is out there. But the thing about this is there's a lot to unpack with it. And to just say fentanyl, this is a bad call. This is a great training opportunity. And as we mentioned at the very beginning, one of those things, and we're glad that everybody is okay. Usually when you get a training opportunity, somebody is hurt or no longer alive. So the fact that everybody is good, it makes a great training opportunity. So the question is, we come across this because it was on an industry news page for us. And now granted, this is an industry news page that is open to just about anybody that has it is open to anybody that has the internet across the globe. They can go to it and find this. So the thing about it is now, what kind of message are we sending? These officers were well trained and responded and helped the deputy, but the message was, this is a fentanyl overdose. And so the question is, what kind of response does this provide to, or I shouldn't say response, but what kind of image does this provide to other police departments, EMS agencies, or even the public that is trying to see something like this?
So I think we need to separate the two. So for the public, the information that Sheriff Corps gives at the end of fentanyl is bad. This is what we're seeing. It's a problem. I think that's great information to the public for them to say, hey, don't touch it, don't mess with it, it's bad. For the professional aspect, I think it's sending the wrong message to the professionals out there of, you get exposed to this, you're going to overdose, you're going to die, which is not the case. I have seen videos of dealers that have been shown because of other operations and things. And these dealers are sitting here cutting fentanyl and carfentanil on their table with their bare hands, and they're not over here hyperventilating and laying out unresponsive. So is it bad? Absolutely. Do we want to inhale that white powder or anything else? Not at all. If you know that's what it is, don't mess with it. Wear your gloves, wear your appropriate PPE. But at the same time, I think we've also got to realize that the issue of opiates and opioid overdoses is running rampant in the public. And as much as we want to prevent it from getting out to people, we've also got to face the reality of it. It's out there, it's in people's hands. And what do we do with them once we encounter them to get them the help and move them to recovery to hopefully then get that one person back on the right track?
So let's kind of see if we can repackage this a little bit. So Sheriff Gore presents this, got a great message to the public. Fentanyl is bad. Got a message to the community practice, which is, I think he kind of really had two different pushes for this, the message about the community and his response, but going to other law enforcement agencies. How could we have repackaged this video that would even have a greater impact overall?
I think repackaging the video would be difficult because of basically what happened with Deputy Five Eye here. He certainly suffered something, but had they just focused on what they found in the vehicle and the potential complications and dangers and not the other medical piece that occurred, maybe it would have demonstrated something different. It's really unfortunate what happened with the deputy here. So I think if we were to repackage it and refocus, we show that it's a problem on the streets. And with that problem on the streets, here's what we're doing to combat it. But we need your help in the community.
I think I'm right there in line with you, Bradley, that as we take a look at this, there's something that happened. And I almost think that there potentially, could have done two separate videos if it truly was meant to go to the law enforcement environment And then you have the public video itself. It's like, hey, there's some significant dangers out there. When you take a look, the CDC even has information on here designed to focus towards those emergency responders. This is obviously an incident focusing primarily on law enforcement, but we know our EMS responders out there, our fire brothers and sisters are exposed to this stuff on a regular basis as well. And the CDC has a preventing emergency responders exposure to illicit drugs and kind of goes into this. And we tie that to the communities like, hey, this stuff is out there, kind of stay away and be bad stuff and can do bad things. Then, we can tie this to, hey, we need to make sure everybody is trained like Officer Crane that can respond, maintain the airway, maintain that he was breathing and focused on circulation, got him the care that he needed. And that's, really any kind of situation. So.
Yeah. And there's lots of things out there that really paint how bad the front line of the opioid epidemic really is. And I would say that Peter Canning probably says it best. If you ever have the chance or opportunity to read any of his stuff, Killing Season is a book that he released. I think you can get an audiobook. I've got the Kindle edition, and I've actually got something pulled up here just to demonstrate basically what somebody was seeing from the front lines. If there's a way that they could have taken the video of what they found in that car and an excerpt from this book, put them together to paint the picture. I'm just going to read one small section. Peter says, I set my cardiac monitor down by the young man's head. He is lifeless, his face white with a blue tinge. I apply the defibrillator pads to his hairless chest. A week from today, after the young man's brain shows no signs of electrical activity, the medical staff will take the breathing tube out, and with his family gathered by his side, he will pass away at the age of 23. Very descriptive. Good book. But if there's a way to take that information and put it into a video for people to see, I think we could have redone this video or do something to reach the public and do something to reach the community to say, hey, this is bad. Let us help you get on the right track and move to recovery.
All right. So let's go ahead and wrap up for this evening and give us your final thoughts there, Bradley.
So, Sheriff Gore, thank you for the video. For the two deputies, we're sorry you had to encounter that and deal with that, but we don't think that was a fentanyl overdose, and we'd love to discuss it with you more if you would like to talk about it. But those are my thoughts and basically what we were seeing from the video from the professional standpoint, from our side, my side.
Well, and I too want to thank the San Diego County Sheriff's Office. One of the things we know is in this day and age, getting out information is something that is going to be extremely beneficial to our communities. And so the fact that they're willing to get out in the community and do a really nice video, is awesome. They got a lot of great feedback in there and well produced, and is taking off, is being picked up and being shared. So there's a lot of great stuff in there. So kudos to them. And obviously they're doing something well within their department because they have a great response. This the Corporal Crane had a great head on his shoulders, and thank him for being out there. And Deputy 5I, do great things in your career. For me, it is, we have to be very cautious about the environments we're in. I think there's a couple of things that help prepare us, and I'm going to use Bradley's example one more time. And I'm not saying one thing or another about Macs or PCs, but we know that a PC that is optimized, running well with the newest materials, clean, is going to operate extremely well. That's going to be the best way. And so, as we've talked about a lot here, making sure that not only are you physically fit for the job, you have sleep, you eat, you drink, you prepare your body, work out, stay healthy overall. Talk about things whenever they do occur, so that you're not just boiling a lot of this stuff up in your head. Prepare for the job and be ready to go out. And then whenever we do go out and have some of these events that we see, such as this, in which there's a vehicle that's got fentanyl all over it, make sure to take your precautions once you identify it. Just like we talk about in the fireside and hazmat, once you see something bad, that's not the time to run in. You back up and you make a plan and you go in. Even when we talk active shooter on the law enforcement side, the goal is to run in and to stop that from happening. But we always want to develop that plan. So slow down, make sure we get into a good environment, and that way we can all go home at the end of the day. I think that's the simple message. At the end of the day, every one of us, whether it's fire, EMS, law enforcement, physicians and nurses and healthcare, emergency managers, you name it, we just need to go home at the end of the day. So for us, don't forget to go by and check out Eric's hard work that he's been doing on the EMS Handoff website, emshandoff.com. That's where you find all of our sources. You find all of our backgrounds on there as well. And if you ever want to reach out, please feel free to do so. Make sure, if you haven't already, to go by our Facebook group, one of our most active places. We've got some good things that are coming up on there. We've got some great episodes that are coming, but you can find all of our previous episodes and some of the commentary and such like this as well. So make sure and give us your comments or your thoughts about this scene overall as well. And don't forget to go over on YouTube, where you see all this video as well, at the EMS Handoff on YouTube. Don't forget to go by the Pursuit Company and check out our clothing. You see Bradley there in the Keep Back line, one of our most popular ones. Very, very well received at our live conference feed that we did just a couple of weeks ago. And you see mine in the original. But you can go to the Pursuit Company at thepursuitco.com, go to the affiliate pages, and you will find the EMS Handoff. So for Eric, who was not able to make it this evening, Bradley Dean and myself, take care, stay safe, and always remember the value of your EMS Handoff.